Welcome in, guys, and Merry Christmas. Or if you're like watching this in the future and it's June and 100 degrees outside, just imagine with me that it's Christmas time and you get a gift from someone that you think is going to be okay, but you're honestly not expecting much. And you open it up and you realize there is a lot more to that gift than you originally thought. That is a lot like the piece we're going to look at today. This is the piece that pretty much all of us know, pretty much all of us at least recognize, probably many of us have literally played it, and we might not even realize how cool it actually is. So let's dive right in here and begin to unravel, or maybe you could say unwrap, the surprisingly complicated form of Mozart K545. Yeah, that one right there. Like I said, it's pretty unexpected that this simple little sonata has a pretty cool form going on in the background. Now we start off with our first theme in the key of C major, which is good because it's a sonata in C major. And now what we're expecting, the way sonatas work, is that somewhere along this theme, we should get into a transition. We should start transitioning to the second theme. And in the first section, which we call the exposition, the beginning of this sonata, we should get a first theme. We should transpose to the key of 5 and then get a second theme in 5. We can look down at measure 13 and see our second theme. Actually, it's this right here. And if we back up just a couple measures, we can see how this transition got us to the key of G. We played D minor, which makes sense in the key of C. And then right here, we added an F sharp. F sharp is the one difference between the key of C and the key of G, and we make it to the key of G. And Mozart's very clear about this. We make it to the key of G, we play chord, chord, chord in the key of G, and then we start the new section out, and just like in one measure, we get. So everything so far has been behaving pretty well. We're supposed to start the exposition first theme in the key of C. We're supposed to have a transition that takes us to the key of 5, and we're supposed to have the second theme in the key of 5. Everything so far checks out perfectly normally. We're going to close out this first section in the key of G, so we get an A minor chord. A minor is a 2 chord in the key of G. The 2s are supposed to go to 5. And it does. In just a second, I mean, this is really a 5 chord because 5's on the bottom, even though it's a G chord. But then we get a real 5 chord. We end on G. Then we have a little tiny, you can call it a codetta, 3 measures up. And that just closes out the section in key of G. So everything so far is like textbook. This is, if you gave a manual on how to write a sonata, you could use this first exposition, just say, yeah, you start in the key of 1, you get to a transition. The transition transitions you from the key of 1 to the key of 5 by adding in the F sharp in this case. We get to the key of 5. We're going to start our second theme in the key of 5, and then we're going to remain in the key of 5 until the repeat section. And what you would do is you would repeat the exposition and do that all again. So far, this has been, like I said, you start to open this present and you're just like, okay, it's just normal. It's not bad. It's just completely normal. But hang on just a little bit. Check out what happens next. After the exposition, we get into the development section. And even though a lot of cool key areas happen here, development sections tend to be wild. So they can go to a lot of places. This piece in particular goes to a lot of key areas. But it's not really shocking because that's what you're kind of supposed to do in development sections. You develop the original theme. You kind of build up a lot of tension and drama by playing a bunch of weird, scary chords and going to weird, scary keys. And we wonder, how are we ever going to return to the beginning? That is the point of the development section. Your listeners are going to think, are we ever going to make it back to? Remember the good old days when things were simple, we just played? So we're going to fast forward until just 2 measures before the end of the development section. And this is where things start to get really weird. I want you just to use your ear and listen to this. Again, we have to be thinking, when are we ever going to get back to the beginning? This is all weird. And then we get this. And we're like, we're home. Life is good. We've returned to the beginning. Except we're in the wrong key. We're in the key of F. This is sonata in C major. If you look at sonatas, you will find that almost all of them will do something in the original key. They'll go to the key of 5. They'll have a weird development section where the whole point of the development section is to build up drama, making us think we're never going to make it home. We're never going to get back to 1. And then boom, we make it to 1 and it feels good. And we did that, except we're not in 1. We're in 4. We're in the key of F. Now here's the thing. There's something called a false recap. This is the recapitulation, by the way. When the exposition comes back, we call it the recap. We're recapping what we did earlier. There's something called a false recap where you do it and you kind of like apologize. You do something like, there's me making up Mozart, but an octave too high. Basically, you do a false recap. Then you say, oops, sorry. Then you transpose it back. And then you really do a recap. We never do that. This is all you get. This is the only statement you're going to get of that original melody. You never, ever again will play the original melody in the original key. That's kind of crazy when you think about it that way. Like the whole point of a sonata is to be like, here's a tune. We went to the key of 5. We went to the development section. Things are crazy, but then you return home. You never actually get home. So like I just said, we're not going to call this a false recap. That then gets fixed a few measures later. This is actually the real recap in the wrong key. But there's something really, really cool that's happening here. So our original melody was in the key of C. We went up to the 5th because that's what major sonatas do. They go to the key of 5. Almost all of them do. So C, D, E, F, G. So C to G, 1 to 5. Now, maybe you've already seen the future, but there's something really cool at work here. If C goes up to G, in the original statement, C was the first theme, our second theme was in the wrong key. G was the wrong key. When you typically fix a sonata, the second time around in the recap, you do the first theme in the key of 1, and then you stay in the key of 1, and you end the piece. That's the drama. You're in C, you go to G, you develop, you go back to C, and you stay in C. Well, if you were in C and you went up to the 5th, now we're recapping in the wrong key. We're recapping in F. But Mozart can take all of the notes from the first section and just transpose them down a 5th. And now when we go up a 5th, F, the 5th note of F is C. So if he does all the exact same notes, he can just redo them. And now we're in the key of C. So it's actually really clever. We start off 1 to 5. Now we just shifted everything down. And we can do 1 to 5 now, but now that 1 is wrong. Now we're in the key of F. When we go up a 5th, we'll be in the key of C. And we can actually finish the piece like we're supposed to. And that's basically what Mozart sets up right here at measure 46. He does this thing again, and then he sets you up to hear this. And then we should get, if we was in a literal transposition from the first half, we could do, let's see my transposition skills here. Now we're in the key of C. And then we're there, right? So that was me taking the first half and literally shifting it down a 5th, and then just we get to the key of C, and it would sound just like the first half. But instead, at measure 49, Mozart does this. Okay, here we go. Just like the first time. No, he's like, your left hand has to play this thing now. Which is, first of all, mean because the left hand has more trouble with the scales. But more importantly than that, it continues our sequence rattling off. So we're not in the right key anymore. Okay, now we're here. Now we're here. Now we're here. And then in a crazy, shocking turn of events, now most of you are probably thinking, oh cool, that's what we heard the first time, right? The first time, those are the same notes. Guess what? They're not transposed. Mozart added in 4 extra measures just to take us back to the original transition. This is note for note. Note for note, the original transition. So Mozart could have transitioned us to the key of C. He adds in 4 additional measures with his left hand to get us to the original transition like we did the first time. So the transition still ends in G. So he still takes us to the key of G. The transition the second time around should take us back to the key of C. And he's like, no, even though I started a fifth lower, I'm going to rewrite my transition, add 4 more measures. So we still get to the same place we got to the first time. And you do all that work to make it to the key of G just to say, never mind. And the second melody's in the key of C. So your high-level overview of what Mozart just now did here is sonatas are supposed to go 1, transition to the key of 5, develop, start back in 1, end in 1, right? 1, up to 5, develop, get back to 1, stay in 1. Mozart does 1, 5, everything's good, develop, come back in the key of 4, the wrong key. Okay. Do the transition to take us back to the key of 1, overshoot to the key of 5, and then do the last theme in the key of 1 anyway. It's almost like a college student was given an assignment to write a sonata, didn't really know how sonata form worked, got off to the wrong key, and then just skipped back to 1 at the end to make it all work out. But we know that's not the case. This is like later on in Mozart's life. He has written tons of sonatas, from the piano sonatas to sonatas for other instruments to the symphonies, which are often in sonata form. And he knows how to write a sonata. He's doing all this intentionally messing with the form. I hope you guys have enjoyed this look into Mozart's surprisingly complicated sonata. If you are into this type of analysis, I'd really encourage you to check out the Patreon page. It's a great way to get some more in-depth analysis, and also it's a great way to support the channel. Thanks for watching. See you guys next video.